Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. So, hope everyone's doing good. I just uploaded a couple of videos, so check them out. I think they came out pretty good, pretty diverse, pretty different from each other. One is about really just the. I did a video before, kind of on the same subjects. This is kind of like part two, but basically, I'm just talking about the kind of the streaming situation, and also different perspectives, on the theater going experience when it comes to watching movies. I did an interview with Asif Akbar recently, who is a pretty prolific director right now, and it was a real interesting interview, very cool interview, made me really think about a lot of different things. And I talk about that interview, but then I talk about, kind of the angle that I wanted to focus on being from mostly centered on the director's point of view. So, and kind of gets into a bunch of different issues around that, and really just kind of addressing the complex hurdles that sometimes present themselves. Not only from the director's standpoint or the filmmaker standpoint, but also from like the audience's standpoint on how we access content, how we watch content. So check it out. It came out, I think, pretty decent. And then I also just uploaded a new video on the new, most recent Sofia Coppola movie, Priscilla, which is kind of a fantastic movie. Each day since I've seen it, I think about it more and more. It's kind of cool. So I just uploaded a video for that, and yeah, it was great, and so it was a nice surprise. I've always been a big fan of Sofia Coppola's work. So, and today's show is going to be again on a new, well, it's a new review on an older film that, for some odd reason, I was kind of craving. I thought about it in the morning. I went to Opera House Video yesterday and I got it, and it was just kind of funny. Of all movies, you sometimes you get these kind of random impulses or desires to see something or to listen to something, and this was definitely an example of that. So today's show is going to be on a movie that I have not seen. I had not seen in years, years and years. But I remember when it came out, it was a pretty popular movie, and I actually remember really liking the film. And I think I probably saw it a bunch of times. I saw it multiple times when it came out. And that movie is Falling Down, and it came out in 1993. It's a well, it's labeled as a thriller crime movie, which seems a little bit kind of strange. Stars Michael Douglas and Robert Duvall. It was directed by Joel Schumacher, who back in the day he was a pretty popular director. He was really prolific. I didn't realize that he passed away in 2020. He was, I don't know, he was a big time actor. I should say he was a big time force in the world of Hollywood in the like kind of the late 80s right through the 90s. He made all of these like giant blockbuster films. He was, I don't know, at one point probably one of the biggest, uh, probably one of the biggest, and to that for that degree one of the most successful directors. Kind of really fit into that mold of like, quote unquote, Hollywood director. I mean, with having the budget, the freedom from these big studios to more or less do what he does, and also having the ability to get real high profile actors in all of his projects, massive releases when the films came out. And a lot of these films had, huge box office returns. Some of his films that he did back in the day, um, he directed Batman Forever in 1995 with Val Kilmer, which I think is, I don't know, kind of an awful movie. I think a lot of his films, it's a pretty mixed bag. But Batman Forever came out in 1995, and that was a really huge film. That was, of course, with Val Kilmer and Jim Carrey as the Riddler. The one Batman movie that I actually like because it's so extreme in its nature and it reminds me a lot of the television show, and I like the comedic aspect of it. That is Batman and Robin with George Clooney and Chris O'Donnell. I actually really love that movie because it's so ridiculous. Uma Thurman plays Poison Ivy. It's so ridiculous and over the top. To me, it almost plays out like a classic B movie or almost like an exploitation movie, and it's so visual. I actually really like that movie a lot. And again, it reminds me so much of the television, of the original TV show starring Adam West. The best film, easily the best movie he's ever done, I think, is the classic from 1987, The Lost Boys, with Kiefer Sutherland. I think that movie is, I mean, that movie is Corey, and also can't forget to mention Corey Haim and Corey Feldman. That movie was like kind of the epitome of 80s. That movie, The Lost Boys, I think, is one of the best vampire movies ever made. The That whole world that Joel Schumacher created is just amazing. That movie also is a real pivotal film in the world of horror and especially vampire movies as being such an influence. But I think it's easily the best movie he's ever done. Phone Booth with Colin Farrell, which came out in 2002, which is not a very good movie. And Time to Kill, again, not a very good movie. All of these films were huge box office kind of phenomenons, as far as I know. Batman and Robin was not very successful, from what I remember. Phone Booth wasn't, but a lot of these other films were. Time to Kill, '96 with Matthew McConaughey. That was very much a big popular movie. He also did a movie in '99 with Nicolas Cage, 8mm, which is actually a pretty cool movie. Pretty gritty. It's like about the kind of the sex world. He directed St. Elmo's Fire. Again, that's a great movie from 85. The Client in '94, not very good. The Number 23 with Jim Carrey, not very good. And so today's show is all about Falling Down with Robert Duvall and Michael Douglas. And again, I used to actually really like this movie. I remember seeing it a bunch of times. I was in high school when it came out, and it was, at that time, Michael Douglas was like one of the biggest, actors going at that time. He had a run where he was, it felt like at one period, in the 80s or 90s, probably more so in the 90s, you know, one of the biggest movies that he was in, of course, was Wall Street, which is an Oliver Stone movie, which is fantastic. But it seemed like from that movie all the way forward, he was in like so many movies, and it seemed like he was starring in virtually every movie that was coming out at that time. I mean, he was a big time kind of rock star Hollywood actor. And I remember Falling Down coming out, and I remember really liking it. And I have not seen it in years. So yesterday I rented it on DVD. Right here. And I've never seen it. Never saw it. I didn't see it in the theaters when it came out. I didn't see it. I don't think I'd ever rented it on DVD, but I did see it a bunch of times. It used to be on cable a lot. and I remember seeing it on cable. I probably did see it on DVD at some point, but I always liked it. I at that time I really loved Michael Douglas, which I still do. I like the theme of somebody just kind of becoming unhinged, and just, you know, it was kind of addressing the everyday stress that we face as people and trying to go through our day. So I watched this movie last night, and I have to say, for you know, uh, all intents and purposes, this movie is kind of terrible. Some things age really, really well with time. Some things don't, and this movie is definitely an example of it. And it made me think too. Well, okay, you have movies that it happens with, I think, lots of things in the arts. You might have that album or that band that you were really into, and you might be just attached to it strictly for nostalgic reasons, which is cool and fine. But I think for something to kind of really connect with you over the years or throughout your life or whatever it is, it has to resonate a little bit more than just transporting you back to a particular time, to a degree. So, and I remember liking this movie, like I said, and I could not make it all the way through watching it now. And I don't think it did not age well in any way, shape, or form. And then it caused me to start thinking, well, maybe this movie was never really good in the first place. It's got so many. The writing for this movie is so awful, and you have an amazing cast. It's a great premise. The opening sequence for this film is really, really great. But then once the dialogue starts going and you kind of get into the story, it's got so many. Virtually every scene in the film has got every stereotype and every cliche that you've seen in a movie ever. Like literally one after another. Which, can work. Stereotypes and cliches work they are what they are because they, in certain contexts, they work very, very well. But the amount of that, the amount of the use of just cliches that you've seen, and just really bad writing and just this ham-handed way of delivering the dialogue is just awful. I was blown away by how terrible this movie is. And like again, like I said, I did not. It made me switch gears with not only, okay, this movie did not age well, but maybe, I mean, I was a teenager when this movie came out, so maybe it just did not. Maybe it wasn't good in the first place, and I think Joel Schumacher's career, his films that I talked about, there's a few good ones, really good ones, and then there's a lot of bad films. And he was especially during this time, he was one of the biggest directors in Hollywood and the big budget Hollywood world. And again, so was Michael Douglas, as far as an actor. The other thing that's really weird is that Robert Duvall, and there's another actor who I can't remember his name, and he's only in it. He plays this like neat, weird neo-Nazi guy, but he was also in Apocalypse Now along with Robert Duvall, which I thought was weird. And the writing is just terrible. And again, it's just cliche after cliche. You have all of these stereotypes that are just continually used, which is fine, but then it's just like, it's ridiculous, around gay people, around people who are of various ethnic backgrounds, Chinese, Spanish. It's kind of terrible. And the film deals with, class warfare, but very much racism, frustration at the system, this feeling of being powerless because your life sucks, so you have to blame it on on a minority group that has nothing to do with your mental illness. Immigration. The topics that this film kind of goes, that talks about or goes into is stuff that we are unfortunately really dealing with today. But again, sweep all that aside, throw all of that out because this movie is really awful. Like I was really surprised. It's so bad. I it's about it's about 2 hours. I After about an hour, I couldn't take it anymore. I took it out. Um, there's moments in the where in the film where the dialogue is literally cringeworthy. It made me uncomfortable watching it. Not the subject matter at all, but just how um, outwardly terrible the delivery was, the direction, everything about this film. And this film again was a very popular movie. It's got a you can tell it's all shot. I believe it was all shot in Los Angeles, but it's got this massive budget behind it, and you can tell. And I can imagine what these actors and actresses probably got paid to be in this movie. But wow, this movie is terrible. And I don't think it's some things age well. Like some things age really really well. They just get better over time. Some things obviously are very dated by their particular decade that they came out. And it's an interesting thing because sometimes that really really works. A lot of the movies I love have come out in the 70s and 80s, and I think that there's obviously a little bit of a dated quality to them because of that, but I think it works in the favor of the movies big time. And this is an example of where it does not. And yeah, I was really taken back, almost shocked on how terrible this movie is. It was funny. When I was in the Opera House video, I was talking to a couple of guys in there, and they were saying how they hadn't seen that movie in so long, but they remember it being, pretty bad. They never liked it back in the day either. And I was like, you know what? Well, I did like it. Was kind of in the mood for it. Wanted to give it another chance. And wow, terrible! What an awful movie. Probably one of the worst, if not the worst film that was ever directed by Joel Schumacher. Yeah, it's a bad movie. So again, like I only made it through about an hour and 20 minutes of the film. Um, and like I said, I don't think it was ever good in the first place. So yeah, don't don't waste your time. So thanks again. This is Jason at Film Fanatic headquarters, and we will see you next time. Peace.